Good evening. Homicide charges have been laid against a Bonnyville area woman in connection with the death of her common-law husband. 41-year-old Deborah Dunenko of Glendon has been charged with first-degree murder. Glendon emergency crews responded to a house fire on Sunday and discovered the body of 44-year-old Kevin Phelan inside. Now, Dunenko is scheduled to appear in Bonnyville Provincial Court next Tuesday. Well, our CMP are investigating a rollover on 44th Street on the west end of our city. It happened shortly after police received complaints of a vehicle being driven erratically late this afternoon. Now, no one was injured in the collision, and our CMP say details are still scarce at the moment.
Just coming into Lloydminster from the west, that two vehicles may have made contact, resulting in one of the vehicles hitting the abutment and rolling over. At this time, we haven't identified who the driver is, and we're investigating whether or not alcohol was involved in the collision.
Now, RCP are asking anyone who may have witnessed this incident to give them a call at 306-825-6350. Well, a Lloydminster father is voicing his concerns after he says squatters have moved into his neighborhood. Now, he says he's made calls to both RCMP and city bylaw officers, but says nobody is taking responsibility in dealing with the situation. Now, Bart Patiesek joins us live in studio and has more.
Yes, Nariman, we started to investigate this story after Newcap News received an email from the resident. He says he's been dealing with the squatters over the last year, and now he's fed up.
Since they tore down the drug house that they raided over here, the problem here has started getting progressively worse.
Jairus Petrie has a clear view of the property in question from his own backyard. He says squatters regularly take over the abandoned garage, driving down property values and making it unsafe for kids in the area.
What happens if my kids are out here playing and all of a sudden one of the squatters decides to get a little bit belligerent and start yelling and all this other stuff at them? I don't want my kids to be around that.
The abandoned property hit the news back in March after a shed attached to the garage burnt to the ground. One man was taken to the University of Alberta Hospital burn unit in critical condition. Petrie says it could have been avoided if the right steps were taken.
If we had the RCMP actually come out, then they'd call us back and say, well, there's nothing we can do about it. We were told that the property owner said that they could be there. Not true. We call bylaw. Bylaw comes out, took a bunch of pictures just before the shed fire. Never heard anything about that again.
It's not an overnight process, and unfortunately, you know, that's not an answer for somebody who's really been annoyed by somebody's next door, because normally they just don't get annoyed overnight. It's a long-term thing.
City bylaw officers couldn't talk about the specific case on camera, but Doug Rodwell, the manager of Protective Services, says their hands are tied when it comes to squatters.
In specific areas, when you start involving property, then you start to deal with sort of a dual jurisdiction or a dual working group. So the squatters or those sort of trespassers would be dealt with under the Provincial Trespassing Act by the RCMP in conjunction with the owners.
Not the news that Petrie wants to hear at the end of the day. In the meantime, he's going to continue watching the situation and hopes one day things will change for the better.
Apparently this was the bad part of town. And they're trying to make it the bad part of town again, and we're trying to make it the good part of town, a decent part of town.
Now, I talked to RCMP this afternoon, and they say their hands are tied as well, as they need the property owner to file an official complaint before they can charge anyone with trespassing. We weren't able to locate the landlord in question, but we'll continue to follow the story as it progresses. Nairman.
And thank you, Bart. Lloydminster's emergency crews are on the receiving end of some much-needed equipment to keep up with our expanding population. Now, the city purchased 2 new fire trucks for the department and forensic equipment for the RCMP. Now, the current fire trucks are nearing 30 years old, and staff say they have customized the new trucks to fit what they need.
There's differences in fire within rural areas, municipal areas, and industrial areas. So you kind of got to build your trucks based on specific to what's in your municipality.
They say it's also important to keep up with safety standards to modernize their trucks.
foam systems, water tanks maybe a little bit bigger, pumps are a little bit bigger. You got to remember that 30 years ago, an 800 square foot house was the common thing. Well, now you got 3,000 square foot houses. Obviously, you need bigger pumps and bigger water tanks. Some of the technologies, the aerial devices, a lot of built-in safety systems, so that you can't overdo things or upset it or things like that.
Now, the new ones will arrive next year. As well, the RCMP will receive new forensic service equipment within the coming weeks.
It will allow us to come up to a standard that is followed throughout K-Division, Alberta. It's everything from dust hoppers to fuming chambers to chemical benches, drying cabinets, stuff like that.
City staff say it comes with the upgrade of the new building and will allow plenty of forensic processing to be done locally. Well, it was a life-saving experience for one local man, a moment he will never forget. Dwayne Wallace survived a heart attack last fall, and thanks to the emergency medical services here in town, he's alive to tell his story. And he speaks out at a good time, as it's EMS Awareness Week, a time to appreciate the staff for all the work they do. And as Annika Notveit reports, the crew in town are close to Wallace's heart.
And you, buddy?
Take care of yourself. No worries.
I still didn't know that it was a heart attack. It wasn't normally what they call the symptoms of a heart attack, the pain in the left arm or anything. It was just a weird feeling. And
Dwayne Wallace was all alone at his home in Sandy Beach, and it was that weird feeling that led him to call 911. What makes the situation more dire is his place isn't easy to find.
We found our patient lying on the deck of his house with severe chest pain. Put him on the monitor to find that he was indeed having a heart attack.
So this is what we used. Ripped your shirt open and put these pads on your chest. When we do CPR, we usually get pulses back maybe 2 to 4% of the time, and it's even less than that when we go to rural locations.
EMS crews say they head to about 1 or 2 cardiac arrest calls in a month. It's safe to say that Dwayne is very lucky to be alive, and the situation aligned perfectly for them to get there in time.
From us being able to find the location from a 3-legged dog to getting through traffic quickly and to him going into cardiac arrest in front of our crews, that's unbelievably lucky.
After about a month, Dwayne was back to living his life normally. It was only then the crews could let the success of this life-saving story sink in.
Unbelievable, absolutely unbelievable. It's quite a feeling.
And Dwayne is thankful every day for the second chance he has received.
it's really hard to explain how you feel after something like that when you know I might not be here right now. I might not have been here a couple months ago.
Annika Notveit, Newcap News.